Okay, I think we're online. Just let me check on YouTube very quickly. Sorry again.
No worries.
All right. Yes, I think we are. All right, great. So I guess we can start. So, well, hello everyone. I am Alexi. I'm a product manager at Product People, and I'll be the host for tonight's not tonight, this morning events. I'm not I'm not awake then. Product People is a product management consultancy and a community builder, and we're on a mission to help companies discover and deliver great product faster. So that's why we often invite product managers, product leaders to share the stories with us and help our viewers understand what's project management or other topics. If you enjoy our events, please you can join us and help us on Patreon. Every little bit adds up, and we run these events because thanks to you guys. So thank you very much. And today we are proud to welcome Tagui for the first time. She's working at AutoScout24, and today she will talk to us about A/B testing, if I'm not wrong. So I will let you share your screen, Tagui. I'll stop sharing mine, and then I'll let you speak. Thank you again.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good. Then I guess we can start. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me, first of all. My name is Tagui, and today I would like to talk to you about A/B testing. So in the product world, we work a lot with ideas. And one of the most important questions is, how do we know if the idea is successful and positively impactful on the business? One way to find it out is to use A/B testing, and I would like to discuss this with you today. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I moved to Munich for my master's degree and I stayed. My professional journey started at Freeletics, where I was working as a marketing manager, and this is where my passion for products started to develop. Freeletics has a very user and product-centric approach to its business, so that's how I became more and more curious about product field, and that's how I ended up working at AutoScout. Now I'm acting as a platform team product manager responsible for the Android app. Outside my work hours, if I'm not painting or baking, I'm writing articles on Medium. It's a way for me of exchanging knowledge and experience with like-minded and passionate about product people. So if you're part of the community, let's add each other and exchange. And now back to the topic, but before we start, I would like all of us in the end of the session have a better understanding of what A/B test is, how to set up the test correctly, which mistakes not to make, and how to read the results. First and foremost, the definition. Harvard Business School defines A/B testing as a way of comparing two versions of something to figure out which performs better. Now, you might be thinking that A/B testing is something modern or innovative, but I have to surprise you, it's actually quite old. It's almost 100 years old. And it started with Ronald Fisher, who was a British statistician and genetist, and he was also the first one to experiment with different samples and introduce null hypothesis and statistical significance, which scientists still use worldwide. And it all started very interestingly with a friendly bet with one of his colleagues, Merle Bristol, during the 4 o'clock tea break. So Fisher poured a cup of tea with milk and passed the teacup to Merle. She made a sip and she refused to drink it because she said that she can taste the difference that he poured the milk first. And she was insisting that she knows the difference between tea first and milk first. So they decided to organize an experiment in which Bristol was supposed to taste the samples of tea and say whether they were tea first or milk first. To everyone's, and especially Fisher's surprise, she guessed all of them right. Of course, it was a devastating public defeat for Ronald, but if not that, perhaps he would be behind the development of the methods that we still use up until today in statistics. You might be asking yourself, when is the time that you go for an A/B test? Well, the range of the reasons can be very wide. It can start from choosing a color of a button and end with defining a better user flow. But very important to remember that you want to set up a meaningful test in which you can not only improve on a specific business metric, but you want to improve on the user experience. Also, it's not for nothing that A/B testing is called split testing. So you choose to go for an A/B test when you have 2 or more samples of a page or a screen that you want to test against each other for a defined set of metrics. Also, it is considered that the test is most effective when you go for one change at a time so that you know what actually had an impact on the success or the failure of your test. You might be also questioning why to choose an A/B test. Based on the McKinsey Global Institute, 25 to 45% of ideas fail. And A/B testing is a great tool for us to identify those ideas very much upfront in time and be safe when we are delivering solutions to our users. More than that, it also helps us to put aside this gut feeling, which I hear a lot, for example, in the product world or space when product managers say, well, we know this, we've heard that when they think of the solutions. And I know that this feeling is built upon the experiences that they had in the company. They might have been witnessing something during the user interview and that stuck with them, or maybe they were having a conversation with the colleague who's been with the company for 10 years and shared some historical information. So this all creates certain associations and feelings in us, and this is how we become a little biased. So A/B testing helps to put that gut feeling aside and helps us take data-driven decisions. Those decisions on their own make us feel more confident about the moves that we make, and they give us stronger argumentations when we need to prove or disprove certain ideas in front of our superior colleagues or management. Why not? And last but not least, A/B testing greatly helps us save time, effort, and money. Well, think about it. Instead of investing multiple months in developing a solution and launching it to the users, and then identifying whether it was success or failure, we can just take a couple of weeks, run the test, and identify this very much upfront. Okay, A/B testing, as any process, consists of the steps, and I would like to break down those steps with you. First step is forming your hypothesis. This is by far one of the most important parts of A/B testing. Hypothesis itself also consists of 3 parts. It's the user problem, solution, and the result. What happens is that we tend to spend most of our time in the solution space, whereas we should be investing good up to 90% of our time in defining the user problem by having a clear statement that we can back up with the data. And only this leftovers, this 10%, should go into the solutions. To illustrate what hypothesis can look like, let's imagine we're running an online bookshop store and we're willing to improve our checkout flow. Hypothesis can look like this. We know that 30% of our users struggle to notice the apply promo code button and therefore bounce from the purchase flow. By adding a black background to the button, we can ensure to increase click-through rate by 6.4%. So it's clear that the user problem is that people do not see the button. Solution is adding the black background, and the outcome we want to see is an increase of click-through rate by 6.4%. All right. Once we've defined the hypothesis, we move on with building a prototype. And this step is also very important. We have to keep in mind that in the testing environment, time is critical. And what I mean by that is that you don't want to spend month and month on building a prototype for your test. The least can happen, you become very attached to your solution and you will be very biased when you need to read the results. So the best way to go about it is to invest enough time to build a usable prototype, but definitely do not go for a perfect solution. Once we've built the prototype, we move on with defining the metrics. And from tool to tool, it can be different, but they all somehow boil down to having a primary metric and secondary metrics. In the given example of the bookshop, the primary metric will be clicks on the apply promo code button, and secondary could be number of favorited items, number of items in the basket, and clicks on the delete item button. It's very important to also pay attention to the secondary metrics. Just because they're secondary, they're not less important. Actually, what can happen in this case, just imagine if we increase the attention on the button of applying promo codes, maybe the users start to pay more attention to the overall sum of their basket, and they start to erase and delete the items in their basket. This can have a very drastic negative impact on the company revenue. So whenever we decide on the metrics, we want to have this 360-degree view on our solutions so we don't harm the business. Also, this can have a very positive impact, just that we always want to know what's surrounding our solution. Moving on, we decide the audience, which is the target group. In the given example, it can be users with one item in the basket. Country, which can be your main country with the biggest user base, or if you're expanding, it can be a country different from where you are right now. Traffic distribution, which is simply the division of the traffic between variations. So in an A/B test, it's 50-50, in ABC test, 33% per variation, and so on. And traffic allocation is the share of your user base that you want to show the test to. Now, you don't necessarily have to define the traffic allocation every time, but in the cases where you're running your experiment on the page where you have so much more traffic, maybe you don't want to show your experiment to everyone. It can happen, for example, on the home screen. To illustrate how you can calculate this, I just used one of the calculators available out there. It's called sample size calculator. And for the sake of example, I just made up those numbers, don't pay attention. But let's imagine we have 3 million monthly users on a page, and we are willing to reach this 5.2 increase in a conversion rate to achieve 95% of statistical significance. The calculator will show us that we need 240,000 visitors per variation. If we're running an A/B test, it gives us 480,000 in total, and as a share to 3 million users, it gives us 16%. It means that by showing our experiment to 16% of our user base on the home screen or homepage, we can already foresee the statistical significance and the detectable effect. All right, sooner or later comes the time to start the test. And here comes the most debatable part of it: how long should the test run? In order to answer this question, you again want to refer to the existing calculators, and I would like to share some examples with you. But overall, whenever you go to the point where you need to start the test, there are questions that you want to ask yourself before and questions that you might be willing to ask yourself while your test is running. So before starting the test, we want to know, am I going to reach statistical significance in a reasonable amount of time? And what kind of effect can I detect within the time I have to run the experiment? To answer the first question, let's just use the example of our bookshop. So we said that I just used one of the available calculators. Again, this is very easy. You Google for it and there are a dozen of it. So we said we want to increase the click-through rate by 6.4%. And let's imagine that the baseline is 2%. We have two variations. It's an A/B test. Let's imagine we have 400,000 users on the checkout page. daily, this would give us 14.3 thousand visitors, and we want to show the test to 100% of our users, and then the calculator will give me 27 days. Now, is 27 days a reasonable amount of time? This is something that product manager has to decide. It can be based on the company strategy, on the product roadmap, on the product strategy, but that's an individual decision that should be taken based on the company and the product. Moving on, you can also ask yourself before starting the experiment, if you have a specific time to run the experiment for, what detectable effect can you see within that time frame? Now let's reverse it. Let's imagine we have 1 month only to run this test, and we want to know what effect we can have with the winning solution, assuming that our solution is going to win. So again, I'm using the sample calculator. Since we said we have 400,000 users per month on the checkout page, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get sample size per variation of 200,000, so that with 2 variations, it will give me 400,000 in total. And I'm just playing around with the minimum detectable effect to get to 200,000. And it shows me that this is going to happen when my minimum detectable effect will equal 7%. Good. So when we run the test, there are also questions that we might ask ourselves. For example, how long will it take me to reach statistical significance? And should I stop the experiment or should I keep it running? Now, let's move away from the bookshop example. Let's imagine we're running an ABC test. To answer the first question, let's imagine that we've been running the test for 4 weeks already. Variation B is already a statistically significant winner, and we're wondering whether it makes sense to give the time to variation C to reach statistical significance. I would use again one of the available calculators. All the numbers are made up for the sake of the example, and let's say that the calculation shows that I need to wait for 61 more days to see whether variation C is going to reach statistical significance. We have to think through this amount of time that we have. If we, for example, optimize on social shares, and this is not the most important metric for our business, I believe that it doesn't make sense to wait for 2 months more with already having a winning solution. So probably the best way to go about this would be launching the solution from the variation B and calling it off. But we have to keep in mind here that this makes sense only when the conversion rate and the improvement rate remain same over time, because if there is too much fluctuation in the conversion rate, the statistical significance will be reset, and we would need to wait until it stabilizes so we can do the calculations again. And the last question would be, should I stop the experiment or keep it running? Again, let's say we're running an ABC test, but in this case, variation B is a statistically significant losing variation. And we're left off with variation C, and we're wondering, should we stop the test or does it make sense to wait for a longer time frame? We again use one of the calculators, and the calculations will show that we need to wait for 84 days. Well, you might be thinking in the previous example, it was only 2 months and we said, no, we're done, we should stop the test. But think about it. In this case, you have a losing solution in your variation B. So your all hopes are on your variation C. And if you, for example, are optimizing on purchases, then this conversion rate of around 3% in purchases can have a very big impact on your company revenue. So maybe waiting this 84 days is not that much for the impact that it can have on your business. As you can see, all those cases can be very different, and each of them requires an individual analysis. But sooner or later, we come to the point when we need to analyze the results. And in the best case scenario, you have found the statistically winning solution, which makes sense that you go on with implementing that solution. But very often our tests yield results that lack statistical significance. The way we react to it is being disappointed. We think that the test was failure, but in actuality, we shouldn't be upset. According to the study from Kaiser Funk, 7 out of 8 A/B tests yield insignificant results. And insignificance is also a valuable outcome. It just means that our solution didn't have the impact on the defined set of metrics. And we have to be wiser with the test setup, with our hypothesis. But most importantly, we have to move on. We have to refocus, think of another solution, think of another setup, and continue iterating. I would also like to present you the most common mistakes that we make in A/B testing. Mistake number 1 will be invalid hypothesis. So as we said before, hypothesis is pretty much the first thing we do. And if you start with the wrong hypothesis, the probability of the test succeeding very much decreases. Also, if somehow some gut feelings or personal opinions find a way into your hypothesis, then again, the test is most likely to fail. Mistake number 2 is too many elements tested together. So both running too many tests at the same time and testing too many elements on the same page together will definitely make it difficult for you to pinpoint which element has the biggest influence on the success or the failure of your test. And apart from that, the more elements you test, the more traffic you require to justify statistically significant testing. Mistake number 3 is ignoring statistical significance. So irrespective of everything, whether the test succeeds or fails, you must let it run through the entire course so that it reaches statistical significance. Because your test results, no matter good or bad, will give you valuable insights and help you plan your upcoming tests in a better manner. Mistake number 4 is testing for incorrect duration. So running the test for too long or too short can result in a failure and producing insignificant results. Just because one variation appears to be winning in the first few days doesn't mean that you have to call it off, declare it a winner, and start building it. The same as letting the campaign running for too long is also a common mistake. The duration for which you need to run your test depends on multiple factors, such as existing traffic, existing conversion rate, expected improvements. And you saw that there are so many calculators, you can just take care of this upfront. Mistake number 5, failing to follow an iterative process. Yes, A/B testing is an iterative process, and every new test has to be built upon the insights and learnings of your previous tests. And we see a lot that businesses give up on A/B testing after they first fail. But in order to improve the chances of your next test succeeding, you always have to consider what you've been testing before and build the next test on top of the learnings of the previous one. All right, and I would like to close this session with key takeaways. The first one would be defining an A/B testing hypothesis is one of the most important steps. We do it very much in the beginning, and we should make sure that we formulate our hypothesis right. The second takeaway would be planning your test and being wise about your test setup. So defining duration, looking into the metrics, all of that really helps you achieve statistical significance and each time improve on from one test to another. And third one is the purpose of A/B testing is in continuous iteration. And keep in mind that when we move from optimizing a key metric to optimizing the user experience, we get to the point where our tests are serving a bigger goal and contributing to a holistic idea of an excellent user journey. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention and welcome you to ask questions.
Thank you very much, Tagui. Really interesting take on A/B tests. We have a couple of questions in the Zoom chat. If you mind,
Sure.
I'll read them. So we have one from Victoria. Hi, Victoria. I also have a comment from Mirella. I didn't read it, but she agrees with you to keep the test running because she had some problem with that in the past. And then the question from Victoria is there a case when we shouldn't use A/B testing?
Yeah, for sure. Like there are pages or websites where, or parts of the user flow where you have very little amount of traffic, and hoping to reach statistical significance there is very optimistic. So you would rather go for a quantitative analysis instead of, qualitative analysis instead of quantitative analysis. That can be the case. And also, as I said, if you're testing too many things, maybe speaking to users is more applicable than running an A/B test.
Makes sense. Thank you very much. We have a question from Gaurav. Hi, nice to see you again. What would you recommend if the sample set at your disposal is in small size? How would this yet help?
So
I'm not sure I got the second part of the question, but yeah, small sample.
If the sample size is too small, yeah, again, it's a strategic choice, right? You have to decide based on your company strategy, based on your product roadmap. If the sample size is small, it means that either you need a lot of time in order to reach statistical significance, but also keep in mind that sometimes, or like as you saw many times, the tests do not yield statistical significance. And there are cases when a positive trend can already be an indication for you. So if you're, for example, choosing a color of a button, or you're changing an icon, variation A versus variation B can already give you a certain trend. You may not reach statistical significance, but if you see that there's no fluctuation in the conversion rate and the trend is steady, maybe you can already get something from it. With even 60% of statistical significance, so to say, you can take certain decisions. But to wrap it up, it's a decision from strategic point of view that you have to make by calculating the duration and seeing how much time will it require, because for a smaller sample size, chances are you would need to invest a lot of time to get to the statistical significance.
Guess it also depends what you want to reach, like what the objective you have, right?
Correct.
So maybe on a small sample set, you have different objectives. Thank you. I'm going to take some questions from YouTube as well. We have one from Kola. That is, by the way, saying thank you. What a talk. Excellently delivered. Thank you, Kola. And he's asking, can you give more examples of minimum detectable effect size?
Examples in terms of struggling to answer the questions. This question
okay, so Kola, if you're still watching us, can you give a little bit
maybe
more
you
details
can specify
for the question?
Exactly, what examples are you looking for?
And in the meantime, if Kola is still here, I will read another one from Lucas.
Sure.
Thank you for the talk. When you iterate your solution, how do you ensure that you are actually improving and not only taking random chances until one test is significant? That's a
really, really good question. So as I said, it's important to pay attention to the trends. In most of the cases, we won't reach statistical significance, but with each time you will learn more about the test setup and how to plan your test in a way that you will get to see statistically significant results. And once you get to the statistical significance, then your confidence level about the next step is way higher. But even if you didn't, every upcoming test is going to be built on the learnings. And I'm sure that like the best practice would be, after the test, always have a summary of your test with your learnings, and then building the next test based on the learnings from the previous one. You cannot do wrong with it. with every time you will just get more insights, and the next step, the next solution will be definitely responsive to what you have already gathered.
Thank you very much. Great answer for a complicated question. Um, Let me see if we have what we have on YouTube again. Yeah, we do have the follow-up from Kola. So let's
Nice.
read this one. When setting up the tests, one of the parameters is minimum detectable effect size. I'm struggling with understanding what that means.
Okay, so normally in those calculators, the baseline conversion is what you have in your variation A, in your baseline. The minimum detectable effect is the change that you want to see in that specific metric conversion. So in this bookshop example, right, we wanted to increase the click-through rate by 6.4%. The baseline would be 2%, is what we have right now. So what we want to achieve is 6.4 increase, and that would be the minimum detectable effect, which means that by having a winning solution, that's the increase that you can expect from your variation that you tested against the original. It's like by how much the tested variation beats the existing conversion rate. And again,
Okay. Thank you for the follow-up.
maybe just to add on those calculators that are available out there, by just knowing the amount of traffic that you have on the page and the amount of time that you have dedicated for your test, you can always estimate how much of the minimum detectable effect you need. I know it's hard, it's just only one example I showed, but feel free to just reach out to me. Maybe I can share some resources that can help you to understand it better.
That would be nice. Thank you. And I have a follow-up on that because I remember a long time ago in the university when I was taking stats class, this was hard, like making hypothesis and making the good one to be rejected and all this p-value stuff. It's kind of the same subject. And do you think how I see it is like you have two kind of A/B tests, I would say, like one that you want to focus on a metric, you say like the CTR you want to improve, and you have one that you don't really know, like at the beginning of the product, what you don't really know what you're building. If you have different prototypes and you're like maybe testing with people. So like in my mind, I have this kind of distinction. And do you think for the first one, the one that you want to improve the metrics, do you think that you need like a basic statistics knowledge to understand and avoid mistakes, or just the training is enough?
No, I don't think that knowledge and statistics is the key. Definitely with existing tools and with just basic math, we can find ourselves through this difficult task. Right now, honestly, you don't even need to calculate the sample and all this duration, and like there are existing tools where you just need to plug in the numbers. So I would never think that it's like the knowledge of statistics is required. But to understand what statistical significance is, what is it based on, what are the factors that impacting the statistical significance, mistakes to make around it, like these things definitely, because by that knowledge, you can definitely improve on your test setup and outcome. It just follows from the better understanding of what it is.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for the answer. Let's see, we have a couple of more questions from Kashika. If the sample size is less or like is smaller, will it not lead to any false positives?
If the sample size is smaller, it means that first of all, you need more time to reach it, because the smaller the detectable effect, the more people, the more visitors you need in order to prove that small change. It's like, you understand, when you say I go from 1% to 10%, can validate it with a smaller size. But if you say I want to improve from 1% to 1.1%, your sample size goes very, very wide. So can you repeat the second part of the question so I can wrap it up properly?
She's wondering if it leads to getting false positive.
Again, I think this is a strategic decision you have to take. So not always you can prove or disprove this change that you're expecting. Sometimes seeing the trend is already good enough. So my answer would be no, but it always requires a better look into the data, and not only the data that you have in your testing tool, but also you can look into the data source within the company to see more and to prove like what are the factors around this metric that you're looking for.
Okay, maybe there's one more question on the Zoom chat. Let's take this one before we wrap up. From Juse. Since A/B testing is based on computer tracked metrics only, how do you implement, this type of experiment with qualitative research?
Yeah, so in my experience, what we do, we combine both. We always take the chance to talk to the users and then test whatever we've heard from the user input in the tools. So my recommendation would be having both qualitative and quantitative combined. Then you can make sure that your hypothesis is built up properly and all the metrics that you're taking into the test are really specific to your solution and to the user problem. So I would say the combination of two is the best way you can go about it.
All right. Well, I think it's almost 9. We're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you very much, Tagui, for this very interesting talk. I really appreciated it, especially that, we don't always see all this math between the A/B test, and I guess some of nerdy people like me like it. So thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Don't forget that we are hosting these events on a regular basis. I will just post the link right after this. And thank you for a great question. Again, don't forget to come to the next events, and also to join us on the Telegram chat. We have quite an active community. You can find us on Meetup also. Don't hesitate to reach us out on LinkedIn. We're always looking for new project as well. So if you have some, don't hesitate to reach us. And with this, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you very much again to everyone.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Ciao.
Hey, Alex.
Hey.
I am so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Right.
I don't know. I was just like, not feeling quite well yesterday, and then my alarm kind of just, I don't know. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much.
It's all right. Don't worry. It's okay. You feeling better today?
Yeah, I feel so weird. Yeah. I mean, better that way, but yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry. Don't mention it. I guess I'll see you next time. I have to jump to another call. I'm sorry I cannot stay,
Sure,
but don't
definitely.
worry at all. See you next